Well guys, the end is here. The 21 Pilots Dima storyline has officially ended, and as I go online today and even last night, there's been a lot of feelings, a lot of big feelings, a lot of confusion, a lot of feelings. And there's been a decent amount of people who have been upset with the ending of the storyline. And look, I get it. I know you can't please everybody. And even I was not disappointed, but I was just really shocked in the direction that they took it. But the more that I thought about it, the more that I sat with it, the more I looked through what they did and what they've done with the past. It makes total sense, and I want to talk about that today, because this music video is something that you have to think about. In true Tyler Joseph fashion, this is something that you have to put some real thought into, because I think if you take it for face value, I think a lot of people can misinterpret, the message that it's trying to send. Of course, I'm not saying that what I'm saying in this video is 100% correct. This is just my educated opinion about what I think it means. And maybe it gives you a better understanding of the end. So let's break down the City Walls music video. So to give you the really quick and easy rundown of this music video in a nutshell, basically it takes place right where Paladin Strait ended. You have the Banditos finally having this big face-off with Dima. Clancy climbs the tower to fight Nico. They have this big fight. I didn't know Nico could throw punches like that, but here we are. Torch climbs the tower to try to help Clancy, but it is too late. Clancy has become a bishop. The cycle has repeated, and Torch has to start over. Now, I think because it is a cycle, this has left people feeling a little uneasy, because in terms of traditional storytelling, that's not what we're used to, right? We're used to some sort of conclusive ending. Like, there's a character that starts out a certain way, they go on some sort of journey, and then they end differently than how they started, right? But with this, it goes right back to where we started, and I think that's left a lot of people kind of feeling dissatisfied about the whole thing. But you have to remember, this is not traditional storytelling. This whole universe, this whole world represents a very real thing, mental health, right? So obviously this is a big thing to take into consideration when writing the story, and we'll get into that a little more further down the road. Now, throughout the entire music video, there are these callbacks to different music videos, which I think is a really beautiful way to tie this all together, to kind of pay tribute to the whole 10 years that this has been a thing. But I think there's something else to it. So as we can see from the music video, during their fight, it is Nico that is sending Clancy in these little time slips. Now, if you think about what Nico and the bishops represent, it's, depression, right? In the most simplest form, it is everything negative in our minds. That is what they represent. So it makes total sense that Nico is the one to send Clancy backtracking, backsliding. I think a lot of people view positive things as progress, like I'm getting better, I'm moving forward. And I think a lot of people, when something negative impacts their life, they feel like they've went back in time. I've lost all this progress. I'm sad again. I started over from where I began. That cycle starts over again when these negative things happen to us. And so by a bishop, by Nico sending Clancy back in time, it represents that feeling of trying to start over, of getting through what you have gotten through so many times before. Now, another thing I found interesting about this music video is Clancy's antlers. Now, since the Outside music video, the antlers have been this weapon for Clancy. And up until this music video, they've proven to be a very powerful weapon, since it allows Clancy to seize just like the bishops. Now, I've made a whole video going into Ned, and you can check that out if you would like, but essentially Ned represents creativity, and by extension, his antlers represent Tyler using his art, using his creativity to fight those negative feelings in his life. And so by Nico destroying the antlers, that represents that negativity fighting back, that negativity trying to take over the creative process. But what's interesting to note is that Tyler's creativity, Tyler's mind, if that's how you want to interpret these antlers, was not enough to defeat Nico. What was the 21 Pilots logo. What ultimately defeated Nico was the few, the proud, the emotional. And so, in my interpretation, Tyler is saying, it's not my art alone, it's the community, it's what I built through my art. And that's essentially what 21 Pilots is, right? I've been in the clique for a very long time. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We can be problematic. We can be extremely toxic. But I cannot deny that Community has always been a strong sense of who 21 Pilots is, and I think that will always remain true. Past all of the nasty tweets and such, I think there is something special to 21 Pilots, something that I have never experienced before. And so by Tyler throwing that in there, he's saying that ultimately I defeated this thing because of you, because of the community, and because I made my art be something that wasn't just me. You know, I let people turn it into something else, and we've made this beautiful thing because of it. Now, at the end of the music video, Clancy is a bishop. He has started the cycle all over again, and there's multiple things about this scene and what happens afterwards. First thing I want to notice, and I kind of noticed right off the bat, was the paint. A lot of the times we see with Nico, it comes up to like here on his nose, the black part. With Clancy, with Tyler, it's about here. It's getting lower. And so I think that represents progress. That yes, this cycle started over, but there was change. There was something that happened. You know, there was a shift. There was progress, even though this cycle started all over again. And who knows, maybe each cycle that paint gets less and less. And I think this is something that 21 Pilots have talked about before, that yes, there is a cycle, but through each cycle, you learn something, you gain something, you know, you go into this repeated cycle a bit stronger than you did the last time. And maybe that's what the paint represents. Now there seems to be an acceptance of this cycle on both sides. I think upon first viewing, you think that Torch is still kind of fighting it, but you can tell by his reaction when he ultimately leaves that he does accept that this is a cycle. Same with Clancy. You know, he did not try to fight Torch when he left. You know, he gave him the jacket, he rejected it, he's like, oh well, and moved on. On the flip side, you have Torch, who is just like, we're gonna start over, we're gonna find a new Clancy. There was no fighting the system. Both of them had accepted that this is just the way that it is. And I think through the lens of the lore, that can look negative. But I'm going to offer you an alternative that makes that sound less scary. I think through the storyline, we have been kind of primed to think, you know, Red, anything Bishop related, anything Dima related is bad. And I'm not saying that it isn't. But the cycle itself is not something inherently good or evil. It just is. It just exists. Look at it through the lens of Oldie Station and a lot of newer 21 Pilot songs. There is this understanding of this is how life is. You know, I can't fight the system. I can't beat the cycle. Life is full of ups and downs, and that is just being human. That is just having feelings and living life. And maybe Tyler fought that when he was younger, but now in his music, there's a sense of this is how it is, and I can use that to my advantage. You know, I know that this is happening now. I know that there's going to be seasons in my life that are good and bad, but I can take what I've learned from the previous cycle and apply it to the new one. You know, I can go into this with a new mindset. I can go into this with new strengths. I can go into this with new insight. And I think that is the main core message of City Walls, where it's like, this is a system, but that doesn't have to necessarily be the same every repeated cycle. There can be minor changes. There can be improvements, even though we are stuck in this cycle. Now, the last little bit of the music video, the spoken dialogue part, is very interesting. There's a lot of lore that happens in just a couple of seconds. We learn that there are multiple Clancys, and Torch is essentially looking for each Clancy, looking for each cycle. And from the way that he talks and the way that we see the music video goes, it seems like a lot of the Clancys just become bishops and then we start all over. Now, I did see on Twitter kind of an alternative take. And in this version, this really goes into what I stated earlier, where it's like, yes, this is a cycle, but there's changes. The character with Torch mentions that we made it further this time. Torch mentions that they've learned new things and they're going to start again with a new plan. And I kind of wish that they would have left that in the music video, because I think that further sends home what I think the message is. Now, I've talked before on this channel that I think Clancy is a concept more than a person. I kind of view the Clancy mask as a Spider-Man mask, where it's not who's wearing the mask, it's what Clancy represents. Clancy represents hope. You know, he is the exception. He's the escapee. He's the guy that brings everybody hope. So because there's so many Clancys and so many different forms, apparently, I interpret this as there's always something to be hopeful for. If you go looking for it, you will find hope. You will find your Clancy. You will find something worth fighting for. And that may not always last, but you will find something else. You know, the cycle will repeat and you will find something else to give you hope. Now, this is very 21 Pilots, but even the credit scenes have lore, because of course. During the credits of City Walls, we actually hear another song called Intentions, and boy howdy is there a lot of things going on with Intentions. Now, Tyler has said that Intentions is actual Tyler, not Clancy. Tyler himself trying to rationalize what City Walls meant. So obviously this song is important when we want to dive into what City Walls actually means. And what's really fun about Intentions is that it's just Truce backwards. The literal song, the actual instrumental, is just Truce backwards. So it seems that Truce is an important song when diving into the ending of the lore. Considering that it's the song that mentions Stay Alive, the whole 21 Pilots mantra, kind of seems fitting. Now, like Intentions, Truce is relatively short lyrically, so let me run through it real quick. Now the night is coming to an end, the sun will rise and we will try again. Stay alive for me. You will die, but now your life is free. Take pride in what is sure to die. I will fear the night again. I hope I'm not my only friend. Stay alive for me. You will die, but now your life is free. Take pride in what is sure to die. Now, Torch actually references Truce when he says, we will try again. That is a direct reference to Truce. And that lyric, the sun will rise and we will try again, represents that cycle. And the whole meaning behind Truce is that the only thing that we're supposed to do is try. You know, we get up every day and just try. And to take pride in what is sure to die. You know, to take pride in that these things are not going to last forever. You know, it goes into that good cannot exist without bad. Bad cannot exist without good. Those two things have to exist for the other to be a thing, right? And that's how I think life is. You know, looking back on my own life, I think the hardships that I've went through, the things that have been difficult for me, has just made the good things in my life better, or has made me appreciate it better, or has made me not want to take things for granted. And I think that's what that lyric is calling upon, where it's like, these things are not going to be forever. That's what makes them so special. Now we're going to take a quick look at the lyrics for Intentions. I'm starting it all over. Once again, did I learn a thing? Intentions are everything. Intentions will set you free. You will fail most every day in every way. Intentions like memory. Intentions will set you free. Just try to be. Now, I think you can probably see the Truce parallels in this, where it's like, just exist. Understand that this is a thing, and all we can do is manage it. As someone who studies psychology, getting my master's in psychology, I know I bring that a lot up on the channel, but there's new people that might not know that I know ball. A lot of times in therapy, people want to approach their struggles as something that can be fixed, as something that can be ended. Where it's like, I just want this to stop. And certainly there are things that can make it better, absolutely. But a lot of the times, this is something that we are dealing with our entire lives. And this goes beyond mental illness. It's just being human. It's just having feelings. It's just being in the world. You're going to be sad. You're going to be happy. And that's going to repeat back and forth until you die. But I think what Tyler is saying here, because it is a cycle that we're stuck in, the only thing that we can do is set our intentions to it. The only thing that we can control is how do we want to approach that cycle. We can look at it from the perspective of something that is oppressive, something that we have to fight, you know, something that we are constantly at war with, which I think was kind of the mindset of a younger Tyler. But now Tyler is saying, this is gonna happen. This is just life. And what we can do is set our intentions. We can be better. We can make changes. And we can just accept that this is how it's going to be. He's saying intentions will set you free. Instead of fighting this thing, instead of trying to deny that it exists or trying to end it completely, we can just accept it as a way of life and know that we will get to the other side eventually. The line, "you will fail most every day in every way," reminds me a lot of Oldie Station. And that repetition of, did you learn a thing? Like, because of this repeated cycle, did you learn anything from it? Did you become stronger in any way? Did you gather anything that could help you into this next repeated cycle? So, to sum it all up, this is all a cycle. It's just how life is for everyone, and we can choose how we want to react to it. There's always something to be hopeful for. In each thing that we go through, we come out of it a little bit stronger. That is how I interpret the ending of the 21 Pilots lore. It's a very sobering, very realistic way to take it, but I think I'm okay with that. I think I'm satisfied with that ending. I don't know how else you would go about it, really. But there you go. I hope this helped. This has just been my thoughts on City Walls. I will probably post a Clancy full album review at some point. There's a lot of things to unbox as well. I got a couple vinyl. There's some CD box sets. I don't know what I got coming, really. I just, there's boxes that show up and I unbox them. I will also be going on Breach Tour, which will probably get a vlog, so there's tons of Breach content on the way. Hope you're seated for it. Hope you're sat. If you are, make sure to hit like and subscribe to join the Groovy Graveyard. Shout out to my patrons over on Patreon, and I will see you in the next one.